Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts right now.
The past few weeks, we have heard testimony from more than 50 witnesses. So many witnesses. But it was the testimony of State Trooper Michael Proctor yesterday that now has so many people talking. Thanks for joining us. I'm Glenn Jones.
I'm J.C. Monahan. Proctor was called by the prosecution on Monday, and while on the stand, he read text messages that he exchanged with family, friends, and fellow officers about the case. Those texts contained vulgar and offensive language. And again, we'll just give you a warning. Some of the language you're about to hear, you might find disturbing.
I text my wife waiting to lock this whack job up. Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though.
I'm going through his client's phone right now, correct?
Yes, after the picture, sir, yes.
Who's the client?
I was referring to Miss Reed.
Trooper Proctor testified that his bosses were aware of this behavior. Despite his conduct, state police tell us he is still on the job. What came to light during Trooper Proctor's first day of testimony has really transcended the trial and is really shining a spotlight on state police.
NBC 10's John Maroney brings us more on this from Dedham.
No nudes so far.
No nudes so far, correct?
Correct.
Michael Proctor reading his text messages about Karen Reed and the investigation into John O'Keefe's death.
From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
The testimony about the text messages was extremely damaging to the prosecution's case and potentially fatal.
Tom Nolan is a professor of criminology at BU and former Boston police officer.
It showed evidence of groupthink. It showed evidence of sexism and misogyny. The texts were offensive and disgusting.
The lead investigator for the Norfolk County DA and subject of an internal affairs investigation, Proctor told jurors the text messages, some of which went to supervisors, were regrettable and unprofessional. But he said they don't impact the integrity of the investigation.
When you are now having to respond to extremely misogynistic statements and other unprofessional statements, you're compromising your integrity.
The state police union declined to comment on Michael Proctor's testimony, but there is a statement on its website that reads in part, "We stand with you, Michael, as we do all of the state police detectives." Todd McGee is a security consultant who worked as a state trooper for more than 20 years.
And I have faith within my former agency. There's thousands of professional men and women that do the right thing each and every day.
Late this afternoon, the union took down that statement of support for Michael Proctor. When he returns to the stand tomorrow, he'll be under cross-examination. In Dedham for Canton Confidential, I'm John Maroney. Back to you.
John, we have received more than 200 questions from either you, our viewers, or a large amount of them, and have to do, Glenn, with Proctor, Trooper Proctor.
Yeah, one question that a lot of you had has to do with his phone and why jurors and all of us heard those text messages in the first place. Roberta wants to know, why did Proctor have to share his cell phone contents? Is it because it was a work phone? Right now, we can't say for certain, Roberta, but we do know federal investigators are investigating the handling of the Karen Reed case. That's being led by the U.S. Attorney's Office for Massachusetts. Federal prosecutors haven't specifically said why they're investigating. Trooper Proctor also faces an internal investigation within the state police. Police have only said they're investigating Proctor for a potential violation of department policy. But sources have told NBC 10 investigators that the investigation is connected to the Reed case.
That internal investigation came to light earlier this year, just days after Karen Reed's lawyers alleged that Proctor never fully disclosed his personal relationship with multiple people involved in the case. We're talking about members of the Albert family. The defense cited text messages from Proctor in those claims. And joining us right now in studio is criminal defense attorney Peter Ellikin and, of course, our courtroom insider, Sue O'Connell.
All right, Peter, let's start with you. Michael Coyne sat in that chair last night, and after listening to the Proctor testimony, he said this witness was fatal to the government's case. Do you agree?
You know, I hate to sound over dramatic, but I can't overstate how damaging that was to the prosecution. And certainly the case isn't over yet. I've seen cases turn on a dime. But here's the problem, that if the jury is sitting there and listening and they have no faith in the integrity or character or the accuracy of the lead investigator, then they start to question the whole case. And that's really the damage that is being done. And particularly, it's not just him. The idea that these text messages were not only going to his friends and relatives all over the country, but also to his supervisors and the other police. And why didn't the Canton police step in and tell him to stop or do something there to intervene? And so it kind of puts a bad light even on the entire Canton Police Department, whether that's fair or unfair.
Well, and state troopers specifically, and it is difficult because one bad apple can ruin the whole pot. This is one bad apple in this case in terms of what he read out loud in court. But Sue, I'm going to hand it over to you because when it comes to the state police, which is a very large amount of people, this isn't the first controversy we've had recently with them.
Right, and this is where I say some of my closest friends are state police officers, right? Requirement there. We've had a number of scandals over just the past decade. Recently, we had the commercial driver's license test scandal where they were giving a golden ticket to people who didn't even take the test in order to get a commercial driver's truck license. We had the Troopergate scandal. You probably forget this one, 2017. 2 troopers say they were pressured to remove embarrassing details about the arrest of a judge's daughter. Then we had the overtime fraud scandal where 50 state troopers were implicated in being in 2 places at the same time, basically stealing money from the taxpayers. We have the embezzlement and kickbacks from the former president of the state union, who was sentenced to prison for that. And then this one you might have forgotten about. The NBC News investigators broke this, the bear crawl backlash, where they had in 2022 recruits performing bear crawls on hot pavement at the Massachusetts State Police Academy. 20 trainees ended up being treated for medical issues due to that. And of course, they keep reporting they have a hard time getting people to work for them, which is, of course, not just the state police. And then the last decade, we had the crime, the drug.
You're not done yet.
Not done yet.
There's a second page there.
Yeah, the drug lab scandal, which, of course, was devastating. So, again, to your point, JC, it's a large organization policing the entire state. Lots of great people work on the state police. But the problem is, when something like this happens and there are supervisors involved, it's really damaging to the entire organization.
And Sue, what you're talking about on a large scale, I think speaks to what you were saying, Peter, on a smaller scale. Even if Trooper Proctor did good police work, it almost doesn't matter because his conduct in this specific situation was so unethical, it kind of paints everything with a bad brush.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're going to be kind of evaluating this entire case. He's saying this now, and we find this to be inaccurate, let's say, or showing a lack of integrity and character. So what they're looking at the other bits of evidence, too. And it's not just the things that he said about making fun of her multiple sclerosis or being, looking for nude photos or whatever. But he also, in these texts, he actually mentions this shoddy police work, that here we have a body found outside of a house where he was expected to go the night before. And he shows up there and he said, when somebody says to him, gee, this is going to make people in the house look bad, he goes, no, it's a Boston police officer. Therefore, he didn't even do, normally you would think body outside of a house. Wouldn't I at least look into the house? Maybe you wouldn't find anything, but isn't that part of a search? He didn't even do the complete job. And so we hear those things. It's not just what he says, but it's also this shoddy police work that seems so biased at the beginning.
So this is too big for 30 seconds that we have left, but where does the governor come in with all of this when you just listed off quite a few things?
So the state police are part of the Office of Public Safety and Security, which is part of the administration of every governor, not just Governor Moore Healey, but every governor. Some critics might say the challenge here is that every governor has been protected by the state police. There's a state police driver for every governor. Their families are protected by the state police. And some people have for many years been saying there's an inherent conflict there that, they might be too close to a governor. We haven't heard from Governor Healey yet on this, I believe. Obviously, the trial is ongoing. There's more Proctor testimony coming tomorrow. So I imagine that we are going to hear from her. She is a former attorney general and a lawyer. So I imagine we will hear something from her. They are looking for a new boss. That's still ongoing, a new colonel. For years, they used to only be able to hire from within the state troopers, the Mass State Troopers, to lead them. As we've learned with the MBTA, sometimes it's good to go outside to find someone in. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Sue O'Connell, Peter Ellikin, as always, thank you. When we come back, Todd McGee will join us live.
He's a retired state trooper and is bringing us unique insight following Proctor's testimony. Stay right there.
His testimony, in my opinion, has been a major win for the defense. How dare the Norfolk County DA office allow to bring this to trial?
He should live in this moment to try to better himself.
Facts and the evidence and the integrity.
Oh, you don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide that. You know who gets to decide that? The jury.
Just some of the reaction we've seen on social media in the past 24 hours or so following testimony in this case from Trooper Michael Proctor. That testimony sparked reaction from so many people. We want to get a policing expert now, though. We're joined by Todd McGee. He's a security and law enforcement expert, as well as a retired Massachusetts state trooper.
Todd, let's get right to it. What's your reaction to Trooper Proctor's testimony yesterday?
JC Glenn, good evening. Thanks for having me. I think what we saw yesterday by the prosecution was bringing Trooper Proctor in to finally testify, and it was a sort of what I would describe ripping off the Band-Aid moment. It would have been even more detrimental had they not called him to the stand first and foremost. If the Attorney Jackson and Unetti had called Trooper Proctor to the stand first, that would have been a significant damage and prejudicial to the prosecution's case. That being said, provocative statements is an understatement. And we all heard the testimony by Trooper Proctor and what most people would describe a less than proud moment.
All right, let's play some of that testimony, Todd, for our audience and to get your reaction. It's regarding those text messages. Trooper Proctor testified not only did his supervisors know about these texts, they were also in the exchange. Take a listen.
Did either Trooper Fanning or Trooper Buchanan dress you down in a responsive text message in that text thread for doing something so abhorrent as looking for nudes or referring to nudes of a female suspect or subject of your investigation? Did that ever happen?
Not that I can recall.
All right, Todd, now that we know some of Trooper Proctor's bosses were in that exchange, did nothing about it, do you think their conduct should be scrutinized by state police as well?
Well, certainly all of this is under review. This is also most likely a part of the internal affairs investigation. To what degree the supervisors will follow some type of departmental action remains to be seen. But certainly the cavalier approach is not desirable in any police officer's conduct, especially during a case such as a sensitive case like this, where an individual has lost their lives and you have another person that is a defendant accused of second-degree murder. So again, disturbing, troubling to hear, but at this point, the best that the prosecution could do was bring Trooper Proctor in, expose the text messaging that was sent and transmitted back and forth in a way that it didn't allow the defense attorneys to just expose and highlight everything, which I think would have been even more provocative.
It would have been, but the question now is, if we put the trial aside for just 1 second, how do we clean up the image of the state police after so many eyes are so on this case? And what Trooper Proctor has said is rising to the top by the number of viewer questions we're getting.
You know, law enforcement is one of those vocations. It's one of these areas where if there's poor misconduct or alleged misconduct by a particular officer, it does blemish the department. And the state police has been in the news far too frequently, but all you can do is just move forward, do better. In a spirit of transparency, that's the way you start to regain public trust, is even in those less proud moments, those lower proud moments, it's about coming up, being transparent, and from there, identifying lessons learned and putting in measures to make sure these things don't happen again.
You spent a lot of your career inside the state police. I know you still care about the agency. When you heard Trooper Proctor on the stand yesterday, did it make you angry?
It was frustrating to hear. I would say it was consistent to nails on a chalkboard. This was all avoidable. This didn't have to happen the way it is happening. And we are a professional agency. We pride ourselves on integrity. And in times like this, it seems like those words are not beneficial to the department, or the department doesn't match those standards. So again, moving forward, we can all do better. We can learn from these particular issues and highlight that even what is transmitted in your personal life can come to light in these types of circumstances. So huge lessons to be learned all around.
Todd Biggie, no doubt we will have you back for more of your insight as the trial continues. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back with our courtroom insider and commentator, Sue O'Connell, right after this.
We are back with Sue O'Connell. Sue, one of the most scrutinized pieces of evidence so far has been the surveillance video from the Canton police station, specifically the Sallyport video.
Right. And, you know, it was introduced, as you can see, as a mirror image there, and then it was changed and corrected, if you will. And so that's been a hot topic, both outside the courtroom and in the courtroom.
Yeah, and according to testimony, the video only begins recording when motion is detected in the garage. That's why there are sometimes gaps in when the recording happens. Let's listen to some of the testimony on this point.
Did you notice that there were obvious portions of the video that in which individuals just seemed to appear or apparate out of nowhere?
It's not a smooth recording of the events.
You see where the person that was toward the back of the vehicle went in this video?
It appeared they went behind the vehicle.
Which would be which area of the vehicle, the right or the left, in real life, not on this video?
In real life, it would be the right rear portion of the vehicle.
So you were saying in the courtroom, there were certain parts of this testimony, Sue, that really stood out for you.
Yeah, you know, one thing that Alan Jackson is really good at is persuasive language and word choice. Apparate is not a word I have ever used. It's a verb.
Harry Potter word.
Right. It's the verb part of apparation, which makes it sound like a ghost is appearing. And he kept using apparate. I mean, I think it's safe to say if I was on the jury, I would know that this video was motion. You know, when someone moved, it went. But he was making it seem almost mystical that it was missing, you know, these images. And every time he said apparate, he was sending a message. And then the witness actually said in real life when responding to a question, and then Jackson took that as if to say this piece of prosecution witness evidence is not real life, it's make-believe life. So he kept saying in real life and apparate, and these are sort of the kind of rhetoric tricks that Alan Jackson uses as a persuasive argument and to get into the jurors' minds. So if they don't know what apparate is and they go look it up, now they'll think when they look at this video, it's about a ghost appearing, not, well, maybe it's motion activated.
Well, that's true. Choice of words. And you also pointed out, I will say, when it came to Trooper Proctor's texts, that he repeated them. We go back to the acoustics in the courtroom are not great.
No.
And so Alan Jackson made a point of repeating what Proctor said, his text said, right? Am I right to make sure everybody heard?
Yes, I think that it's safe to say that Trooper Proctor is a down, slow, low talker in general. I'm sure in this particular situation, he was even burying it more. And the more that he kind of swallowed his words up during prosecution, during ADA Lally's questioning, I was just waiting for Alan Jackson to get up to start yelling the words and making him speak up, which we had seen him do with Colin Albert, right? When Colin Albert didn't want to say some of the words that were in the videos that he allegedly made. So I think that this is a way of looking at persuasive language. Again, regardless of what side you're on, it's persuasive language.
Sue O'Connell, thank you so much. Still ahead, we go beyond the headlines, how this case has impacted the town of Canton far beyond the trial.
When it comes to this case, there have been strong ripple effects beyond the headlines. John O'Keefe lost his life, and the lives of his family, friends, and loved ones will never be the same.
The Karen Read trial has also shined a spotlight on the small town of Canton, and it has brought about public outrage and a call for change. A select board meeting is underway right now where renewing the police chief's contract will be open for public comment. Some people have shown up to protest. We're going to follow this story for you closely, and of course, we'll update you with any developments when we return back here tomorrow night.
That's where we leave you tonight. For Canton Confidential, I'm Glenn Jones.
I'm JC Monahan. Testimony resumes tomorrow at 9 a.m. with Michael Proctor back on the stand for cross-examination. We'll see you at 7.